So one of the main reasons to use matrix multiplication is that it makes writing linear functions much shorter and much simpler. So before, when we wanted to write a linear function with 3 inputs and 4 outputs, we were forced to write all of this information down with a bunch of redundant stuff. Now, in matrix notation, we do the following. Write a column vector that has all of our output variables. We write a column vector that has all of our input variables, and we just put this matrix of coefficients and this matrix of and this column vector of constants, and we just write it in a multiplication form like this. And that's much more concise. There's much less redundant information inside it, and that's the big thing that matrix multiplication buys for us. In fact, using matrix multiplication and column vectors, a linear function looks like this. It looks like y is equal to ax plus b, which is almost exactly the same as we used to write lines. The point is that now we have to be a little bit more careful about how we interpret this. Now, these three, y and x and b, are now column vectors instead of just being numbers. This A is a matrix, and this dot between A and X is matrix multiplication rather than just being ordinary multiplication. And the addition is matrix addition or vector addition. So it looks deceptive, it looks like it's just a linear function, but it's just a clean way of writing a linear function of several variables. And if b is equal to 0, if there's no constant vector, this has a special name. It's called a linear transformation. So there's something to keep in mind that I want to be careful about. So matrix multiplication has a property that might be a little bit unfamiliar, namely order matters. I cannot emphasize that enough. So A times B and B times A are different matrices most of the time. If A and B are matrices, we cannot switch the order we multiply them in. In fact, we may not even have one of these two multiplications. So for example, if A is a 5 by 7 matrix and B is a 7 by 10 matrix, then A times B exists. It's going to be a 5 by 10 matrix. But B times A would be a 7 by 10 times a 5 by 7, and we simply can't do that at all. It's impossible. And so as a result, we have to be very careful about order. And when we write linear functions, we have to say that we're working with column vectors and that we're saying A times the column vector plus another column vector is how we're writing the linear function.